Greetings. This is Jim Wickens from NFL Draft Fanatics, and Dane Bruglar released his mock 2.0. I am going to go through the process of trying to implement his two-round mock on the interactive simulator at NFL Draft Fanatics, and I am recording this so that if other people want to implement their mocks, they would be able to see how. So, a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to start at pick 32 and work backwards. That way I can kind of keep my eye on a couple of things, but definitely more than one way to do this. So I'm going to start by doing Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to do a first-round challenge. And the picks that Dane had for Baltimore were Jordan Morgan and Darius Robinson. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to do the second round player first in every case. So I'll find, helps if I type it into the correct field. So Darius Robinson, I will take him. So he's now has a first round value on him. And then Jordan Morgan will be the next player I take. And then a first-round challenge is 5 unique first-round picks. So I'm just going to kind of round it out and make sure I take players that are outside of the top 9. So we'll go there. Okay, so did that. Okay, the next team going backwards would be San Francisco. Players he had were Kieran and Graham. Now, before I do this, I have to switch Graham's position. So I'm going to go in and to my admin panel and take care of that. And the reason I have to flip Graham Barton's position is that our algorithm here would not let a team take 2 players at the same position. And right now, both of those players at NFL Draft Fanatics were tackles. And then I had heard that some people had Barton flagged as a guard. So I'm just took care of that. Okay, so now we do the same first round challenge here. And we're going to do it for San Francisco. And again, we do second round first. And I see that there's people watching the podcast. So if you do a mock draft, so if you're watching this, go to NFLDraftFanatics.com, do a mock draft for any team other than Baltimore, and tell me who Baltimore took in round 1 and round 2. And that'll tell me how quickly this is going to be able to be implemented. So I see a lot of you there. Feel free to stop in and say hi, drop yourself into the chat. If you are not familiar with this simulator, it has interactive player boards, which means that anytime you pick somebody, they're moving up the board for that team. And then again, everybody I pick that's not part of the mock, I'm just picking players that are outside of the top 9. And the reason for that is the algorithm here that will try to get a player off the top spot. So whoever was, for example, at the top spot of San Francisco's board, I've got to move them off of it so that whoever is at the top of any team's board getting them off the top of it, because there's been so many mocks already done, it's going to take more than one mock draft to get them off. So, okay, so we go here. We're doing Detroit now. Detroit, first round challenge. So Detroit, Dane had them taking Tavondre Sweat in round 1 and TJ Tampa round 2. Okay. Okay. Next team. Is it Buffalo? I think Buffalo's next. Yep. Okay, so for Buffalo, he had them taking Keon Coleman and Cameron Kitchens, I believe. Yep. Okay, so Kitchens was already high on Buffalo's board, so that worked out all right. And then getting Keon Coleman to be number 1 on Buffalo's board will take some doing. See, if you look, like, so right now he's not even available because the simulator has a different team taking him. So I'll go Mitchell and then see if we can get some of those defensive linemen up. There's Coleman. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. So by picking a player that's outside of the top 8, you know that, based upon the algorithm, that's going to drop the player at the top spot the most. So we look at the algorithm looks at the top 10 players that weren't selected, and those are the values that get subtracted. So I'm essentially taking the 10th player and trying to get him to number 1 there. So Buffalo, I'm probably going to have to work on a little bit, but let's move on to the next team in the draft order. So that would be Kansas City. So Kansas City, he had them taking Jerzon Newton and Jatavian Sanders. So we're Kansas City, first round challenge. Okay. Okay, and then the next team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, so Tampa Bay and Dane Bruglar's draft, he had them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry and Xavier Worthy. So your Tampa Bay first round challenge, doing the second round player first. Is Worthy already off the board? Really? Oh, again, got to type the player name into the right filter. Okay, and then the next team, going back. Oh, we got one more to do. Next team going backwards is Green Bay. So Green Bay in Dane Bruglar's draft, they have a couple second round picks. He had them taking Kalen King and Jaden Hicks. So one of the tricks, if you're new to the simulator, by doing a first round challenge, I'm giving the second round players a really high grade. They're going to get a really high value. So I'm basically biasing it so that there's not going to be a lot of players available in round one to the team, but I'm making sure the second round picks are basically going to sit at the top of the board when round two comes around. And Fontenue isn't there. Okay. And then the next team, working backwards, we just did Green Bay, right? So now we're going to do Dallas. Dane Bruglar had Dallas. I know they took a running back in round two. So Tyler Guyton, Jonathan Brooks. So one of the things Dane pointed out is it was the Dallas team doctor that actually did Brooks' ACL surgery. I thought that was an interesting little nugget from their podcast. I thought it was an excellent podcast by Nate and Dane earlier. So okay, and then the next team going backwards, Houston. So again, I see a lot of people joining the podcast. I am implementing Dane Bruglar's Mock 2.0 on our interactive simulator. And the way that that is done on this simulator is by doing mock drafts. So I'm doing what's known as a first round challenge, which means I'm picking every player that Dane had in his to the team. I'm picking them in round one on this simulator. And by doing that, they're all going to have a high value, and the simulator should then pick them up. So feel free to stop into the chat and say hi. Okay, so we've done Houston. So going backwards, the next team is Philadelphia. So the Eagles, I believe, have 2 second-round picks. Okay, so Eagles first-round challenge. And he had Junior Colson as linebacker 1. So that was something that I learned from the podcast. And so step number 1 is I'm going to do a first round challenge and try to get the second round players that he had at the right spot. And then if I need to fine tune any team's board, I will end up doing a second round challenge and just repeatedly pick the player he took in round 1 until they move to the top of the board. Okay, so Philadelphia is done. Next team moving backwards is Miami. And Dane had Miami taking Jackson Powers Johnson in round 1 and Edgerrin Cooper in round 2.
Connecting.
Okay. And then the next team going backwards is Pittsburgh. Cooper DeJean, Zach Frazier. Okay, and then next team going backwards, Rams. And Dane had the Rams. That's not right. Oh, I probably have the Rams spelled twice in here. There we go. Yeah, I have it spelled two different ways. Connecting. Okay. He had him taking Ennis Rakestraw and then J.J. McCarthy. So Rakestraw in round 2, McCarthy in round 1. And then gotta get okay. So I see people joining the podcast. So I am implementing Dane Bruglar's Mock 2.0 on the interactive simulator here. So I've started at the back, and now I'm working my way to the top. So on the right, I have his mock in the spreadsheet. So he had the Bengals taking McConkey and Mims, or I should say Mims and then McConkey. Okay. And when I implement it, I do a first round challenge, which is 5 unique first rounds. So anybody I pick using this technique is getting a first round grade. And the idea behind it is that if I give, for example, in this case, if I give McConkey a first round grade, he's going to move really close to the top of the Bengals board. And then any player I pick after that will also move to the close to the top of the Bengals board. And I'm hoping that meaning I'll have the second round done before the first round, but the second round would actually be the tougher of the two. It's easy to get somebody to go to the top of the boards in round 1 here. So, okay, and then I've got 3 other players I'm moving up. So a couple of other things with the simulator. So when we implemented the simulator, Byron Murphy, his grade wasn't that high. And then there was another defensive lineman, Robinson, his grade wasn't that high. So by me picking them in the first round, their grades improve. And then if we look, there's another safety. So Dane had Hicks. Notice he's 213. by picking him in round 1, he's going to be much higher than 213 now. Okay, so moving backwards, we're now at the Jaguars. Jaguars, he had going wide receiver in round 1, and I don't remember what he had them doing in round 2. So Cooper Beebe, guard in round 2. So we'll do Beebe first. Brian Thomas. There we go. So if you're watching the podcast and you want to stop in and say hi, it's appreciated. So I'm not like talking to myself. The reason I'm making this a podcast is so that if anybody chooses to implement their board, they know how to do this. I'm expecting that I'm going to get the whole thing done in about an hour. We're 30 minutes in at this point. So that might be optimistic to get it all done in an hour, but we'll see. So before Jacksonville is now Seattle. Dane at Seattle. So they only have a first round pick. Okay. So, for example, if you're watching the podcast, go do a Seattle mock and take Byron Murphy in round 1. Let me know what the rest of the mock looks like. But it's going to take a few mocks to get Byron Murphy to go to the top of Seattle's board. So again, by going to player 20, I'm trying to reduce the value of whoever Seattle had at the top of their board already. There was method as to why I was going to the second page. Next team was the Colts. He had the Colts, I think, taking 2 defensive players. So Broswell and Wiggins. So again, I see people jumping in and out of the podcast. I'm implementing Dane Bruglar's Mock 2.0 into the interactive mock draft simulator. And the way you do that is by doing a mock draft. So I am picking the players that Dane picked for each team. I'm doing it one team at a time. And the reason for that is I'm using something called the first round challenge. So The first round challenge is 5 unique first rounds. It is by far the easiest way to get players to go to the top of a team's draft board. So the first 2 players I take as part of the first round challenge are the players that Dane took. And then the rest of the players I take are players, and ironically, it was Dane's mock that said that he thinks they're day 1 or day 2 players. And on the initial grades that we gave them on the simulator, they were lower than that. So I'm moving them by picking somebody on this simulator. You move them up the board. Okay, so the Saints, I think the Saints only have a first round pick. I don't know if they have a second round pick. Oh, they do. So he had him taking Dominic Puny. So is Puny here? Yes. Okay. And then working backwards from the Saints, we'll do the Raiders. Dane had the Raiders taking J.C. Latham and then Michael Penix. So I don't even see Penix being available. No. Is Latham already off the board too? Oh, it helps if I turn off the position. Okay, so Penix is already pretty high on the Raiders board, if memory serves me correctly. But so there he is there. So I can see the simulator slowing down. So I can see people are using it while I'm doing this, which is awesome. Love seeing people use it. If you have questions on how these boards are moving, drop them into the chat, and I would be happy to respond for how the boards move. So every single time you pick somebody in any round, the player will move up that team's player board. So there's 32 teams, there's 32 player boards. So we just did the Raiders. Now we're at the Broncos. I think the Broncos only have a first round pick. I do not think they pick in round 2. Yeah, and he had him taking Tyrion Arnold. So at this point, we're 35 minutes in, and I only have 12 more first-round picks, and then I have Carolina and Cleveland to deal with, but I'm going to deal with them last. So one of the reasons I like seeing other people's mock drafts is that if they see a player with a higher value, I don't claim to be an expert on player values. I like hearing the discussions of why one person has a player ranked higher than another. So I find that really valuable. So for Minnesota, I think Minnesota has a first and a second this year. Dane had Minnesota taking Latu and Rook. So let's go find Rook. And then Latu. Okay. So now we're approaching the top 10. Just did Minnesota, so now we have the Jets. So I see more people joining the podcast. I am implementing Dane Bruglar's Mock 2.0 on the interactive draft simulator at NFL Draft Fanatics. And I'm recording this so people can see exactly what I'm doing. And if they choose, OU's already off. Okay. So if you choose to do this for your own board, there's a record of how I did it, so that you can just go do it on your own. I'm 40 minutes in, and I've already set a vast majority of his mock draft up. I've got about 9 teams left to go. And the way that you set a board up here is by picking the players. Okay, so OU hasn't dropped yet. Okay, so let's do Hicks. There he is. He's already at the top of the board. I wasn't too concerned with OU to the Jets, because I've seen him mock to the Jets in this simulator more than once. I knew he was pretty close to the top of their board. So the way the simulator here works is each team has its own player board, and the simulator generally will select the top available player when that team is picking. depending upon what the other advanced settings are set at. Okay, so the next team we're doing is Atlanta. So Dane had Atlanta taking Jaden Daniels and Jalen Polk. And Jaden Daniels should be pretty high on the Falcons board already. Yep, see, he's already number 2. So the simulator is probably already going to take him to Atlanta if he fell. And then a first round challenge, which is what I'm doing, is 5 unique first rounds. It is by far the easiest way to get players to go up on a team's draft card. Okay, so at this point, for the first round, we have 7 teams to go. So the Titans, T, gotta learn how to spell. He had the Titans taking Joe Alt, Kamari Lassiter. Again, I'm highly confident that Joe Alt is really close to the top of the Titans draft board. So you can see Joe Alt was already there. So, but I'm taking the second round player first. So that would be Lassiter. And so, like in this case, if we look, so both tackles went in that simulation earlier. But by picking players that are far away from the top, I know that their value is low. So it's going to decrease the value of the players in front. And that was one of the reasons I like going to the players that are towards the bottom of the draft card, is these are players whose value is low, so it creates a big delta. And that can help get the boards to where I think they'll need to be in order to try to prove this out. Okay, so now we got 6 teams left to go. Giants, I know I saw a lot of feedback on Twitter about the Giants. There were a lot of Giants fans that didn't like the pick. So they took Bullard, Trice, Odunze. Bullard. Trice. Okay. And then got, what, at this point, 5 more teams left? Yep. So the Chargers, I know he had them taking Brock Bowers, but I don't remember what they did in round 2. So Bowers, Jenkins. Powers was already at the top. Oh, there he is. He was already higher. Got it. Chargers fan had already picked him at least once. So I appreciate everybody watching. This recording will be on the YouTube channel so that anybody that would want to implement their board would know how to do it. Okay, so now we've got 4 teams left. So now it's the Cardinals. Cardinals, I believe, have 2 second-round picks. Chop Robinson, Kingsley Suamatea, Malik Neighbors. So Chop Robinson. Suamatea. Neighbors. Okay, so the Cardinals, I may have messed that up because I forgot that they had 2 first-round picks. But we'll see. Okay, we got Patriots. So he had New England. I believe it was wide receiver round 1. And quarterback round 2. Yep. So I'm going to do Bo Nix. And then Marvin Harrison's already off the board. Okay, so let's do waiting for Marvin Harrison, but he should already be pretty high up. Okay, so we got 2 teams left. At this point, it is the Commanders, Nubin Paul May, Okay. And then we're about an hour in. I've got everything done except for the two teams that don't have a first round pick. Those will be the two toughest teams, but I'll address that here in a minute. Okay, so the last team is Chicago. Okay, and they only have first round picks. So here's a little trick I'm going to do here, right? So Chicago has 2 first round picks. I want to make sure that Dallas Turner's really high. And then I'm going to work on the players that are on the back of the draft card for the second first round pick to make sure Caleb Williams gets picked for the top. And then okay. And then I don't want to be picking really good players and increasing their value because I need to get Caleb Williams to the top. So this is where it really helps to have some players on the back of the draft card that you want to move up. I've already grabbed Hicks. Yeah.
Milpitas, California, +1.
Okay, so here's my test. I am going to do a 3-round mock for the Panthers, and I'm turning on first round BPA and second round BPA. And I'm turning off the team filter here. So Panthers don't have a first round pick. I'm going to do a regular 3-round mock, and I want to see who went to each team in round 1 and round 2, and that's going to tell me which teams I need to still focus on. So, for example, if we look here, okay, best player, Caleb Williams. The top player left was Drake May. The next player available was Marvin Harrison. The next player was Malik Neighbors. The next player was Brock Bowers. Okay, but the Giants have Jaden Daniels going here. So I need to work on the Giants. And is there a quick way I can color? No. There we go. We need to work on the Giants. Okay. Titans took Joe Alt. Falcons took Penix. But that was because Jaden Daniels wasn't there. Dallas Turner was taken there. OU was taken. Okay, so I need to work on the Vikings. Denver, Tyrion Arnold, great. Raiders. That's another team I need to work on. Okay, and then Saints verse, that worked. Colts took Wiggins, that worked. Seattle, got to work on this one. Okay. Jaguars didn't take that. Bengals took Mims. Need to work on the Rams. Steelers took DeJean. Okay, Miami. Need to work on that one. Eagles took Quinion Mitchell. Houston took Kalen King, so we need to work on that one. Dallas didn't take that one. Green Bay took Fuaga. Again, I'm taking Fontenot. Tampa Bay. Yeah, you can see I've got a lot of work to do at the back of the first round. Arizona. Got to work on that one. Chiefs, we got that one right. Buffalo did not take Coleman, so we got to work on that one. The Lions, got to work on this one. San Francisco took Barton. The Ravens did not take Jordan Moore. Okay. So if you look here, so now I have to do A.D. Mitchell. And he's 35th. He's not going to go from 35th to 3rd. That's just not going to happen. So that's going to take a lot of picks by the Panthers. But let's look at the rest of round 2. Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. So now if we look here, A.D. Mitchell. So who did the Patriots take in round 2? Patriots took Nick, so we have to work on this one. But Nick's may have already been off the board, but I'll verify that. The Cardinals took Kingsley, so that's not right. The Commanders took Paul, so that was right. The Chargers took Jenkins, so that was right. Titans took Lassiter, that was right. The Giants took Trice, so I got that one right. Commanders took Newbin. Jaden Hicks. Rook. Polk. Okay. Got to work on the Raiders. Okay, we got Puny to the Saints. Broswell to the Colts. Ballard to the Giants. Beebe was already off the board, but got to make sure that we got that one right. Bengals took McConkey. Eagles did not take Colson, so I got to work on that one. Steelers, Pran, so they didn't get that one right. Rams. So the Eagles, is that the second Eagles pick? Colson and Bullock. Colson. Okay, so Bullock and Colson did go. They just went in a different order. I'm going to give myself partial credit for that. Okay, so we got work on the Browns, but we already knew that. Jackson Powers Johnson to the Dolphins. So we got work on that one. Cowboys to Guyton. Buccaneers took Worthy. No. I was getting excited. I thought I had it. Packers took King. Nope. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit more. So I got that one right, but that one didn't work. Okay, so I got about 50% of the second round to work. Okay, and then this is really their third round pick. Wow, Troy Franklin fell. Okay, so I'm going to close the podcast out. That was me implementing a board, and then I am going to, once I go offline, I am going to continue doing like second round challenges to fix any of the team's boards that didn't pick. So I'll actually do one second round challenge online so people can see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go with Buffalo because Dane had Buffalo doing Coleman and Buffalo took Kitchens. Okay, so here's how we do that. Okay, so basically I'm going to do this thing called the second round challenge. Okay, and pick Buffalo, and I say go. So every single time Buffalo has a first round pick, if Coleman's there, I'm going to take him. That will promote Coleman to the top of the Buffalo card. But you can see he's gone there. So I'm just going to, at this point, so at this point for Buffalo, for the first one, I'm basically just picking players that are distractors. Okay. So for their second round pick, I don't want to take Kitchens because I want his value to drop. So another second round pick for Buffalo could be Leonard Taylor. Okay. Okay, so I go and I do that once. The overall goal here is if Coleman is there, I want to take him, and I don't want to ever take Kitchens. I want to see Kitchens' value drop below Coleman's. So the rest of the picks that I take here, so I see Kitchens there. He's sitting at, he was 2 before. He's already dropped to 3. So what I want to do is just come down to about the second page or third page, and I'm going to take players in the second round that should move up Buffalo's draft card a little bit. But you notice how Coleman is 2 and Kitchens is 5. I'm going to keep taking Coleman so his value increases. And I am purposely going to skip Kitchens every time. right? So Kitchens is sitting there at the top of Buffalo's board in round 2, which is what we wanted to do. But I'm not going to pick him. I'm going to go take other players so that Kitchens' value comes down just a little bit each time. A second round challenge is 10 unique second rounds. So I get to continually pick Coleman in round 1 to get his value to go up. And then every single time I ignore Kitchens, his value will go down just a little bit. And I have a pretty good idea of some of Buffalo's needs. So like Buffalo needs a corner. So I see corners that are sitting there on the board for Buffalo in round 2. So by me picking them, they're going to move up a little bit on Buffalo's draft board, but they're not going to move up a lot. If you pick them in a first round challenge, they jump up the board. But if you pick them in a second round challenge, they move up the draft card, but they don't move all the way to the top. We're at iteration 7 of 10. Okay. So Buffalo also needs a center. Okay, so in this case, Coleman is off the board before Buffalo's pick. So Kitchens is there. I'm going to purposely take a player that Buffalo could take in round 1, like Powers Johnson. Okay. And because there's a difference between the value of the player at 8 and the value of player at 1, the difference between those two is how much Kitchens' value will go down. Kitchens will go down a fraction of that difference. Okay, so notice how like Jackson Powers Johnson is now higher than Kitchens, for example. Okay. Now, Coleman is still not there, but I can at least get Kitchens' value to come down a little bit. So notice Kitchens is already down to 10th on Buffalo's draft card. Okay, so you can see that his value has gone down because of the actions that I have taken. And this time, if Kitchens is there, I will take him because this is the 10th and final iteration. Okay, so now I took Kitchens, but I've moved him down Buffalo's draft card, not a lot, but a little, to the point where if I try that Carolina draft again, so if I do that same exact 3-round mock, first and second round BPA on, I'm going to pay attention to who did Buffalo take. Now, because I noticed that Coleman went to the Chiefs, Yeah, so there's probably already either other people doing mocks or, like in this case, Coleman was off the board. So when you're implementing something like this, and especially because I'm doing it on a podcast, if people are listening to me, they can go into the simulator and they could go and manipulate it while I'm talking. So either way, it's all good. People are using the simulator. Hopefully they're enjoying it. And I'm good with all of that. But that was how I would check my work. And it's probably best if I do this later at night when there's fewer people using it, and I won't announce it on a podcast what I'm doing, so that I'll be able to go back and manipulate the boards and do that. So like in this case, Troy Franklin and AD Mitchell both dropped around 3. So I'm going to close out the podcast now. I appreciate everybody that came in and out and listened. There will be some other podcasts on this channel tonight, which includes the defensive linemen that are in the top 100 of the NFL draft. So we've got 3 people coming on the podcast to talk about that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.